Alright everybody, hi, it's Gib the Nutritionist here, and today we're going to do a video on iron overload and hemochromatosis. And the reason I made this video is because we often hear about something called anemia, and that's what happens when people aren't able to make red blood cells. And the thing is, we're often, looking at, anemia. These are people that are often vegan, vegetarian, right? They don't get enough iron from their diet. You got people that are, for some reason, right, depending on their health, whether it's leaky gut, whether it's ulcers, whether it's bleeding, whether it's severe trauma, they could be, low in iron. But what about the flip side? You know me. I'm always looking for the people that want answers. The people looking for, help, right? You go on the internet, you look, and you have, different conditions, you have different problems, and no one's coming up to you and saying, hey man, this is your problem. I like to look at the things that are kind of niche. I like to re-examine things through a different lens, because iron overload is a problem for a good deal of people. So let's look into it and what it is, right? Because there's someone that has something called hemochromatosis, and this is a kind of disease, right, where people genetically, right, they're born with a defect, and they have a lot of iron in their blood, and they're having these problems right here. So we're talking about the liver problems, right, with fibrosis, cirrhosis, in some cases carcinoma, which is a cancer. Some people, right, especially the heart, maybe your A1C is low, you're doing good, blood sugar is pretty good, inflammation, could be caused by having too much iron being placed into your heart tissue. And for some people, they're getting, the risk of atherosclerosis, which contributes to the clotting factor. Some people, hypertension, right, so high blood pressure, arrhythmia, heart skips a beat, cardiomyopathy. This is very serious. And, I'm always looking for the outliers. So again, right, type 2 diabetes and insulin resistance, right? Maybe your pancreas has damage, right? Because your pancreas is where you have what's called the beta cells. And the beta cells, right? You have this thing where you have zinc ions and they come in and they help you secrete insulin. For some people, right, maybe it wasn't ever really a blood sugar issue, right? There are actually some cases of people that have arsenic toxicity or poisoning, and they have damage to their pancreas. And what I'm trying to say, right, is this could happen too with iron overload if you are that kind of person. The brain, right, apparently due to having high amounts of iron, right, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, Huntington's disease, you get this accumulation of something called beta amyloid plaque formation. And I think this goes hand in hand with copper. But for some people, right, they can have a high amount of iron, as you're seeing in people with hemochromatosis. So what I'm trying to say, right, is people, although genetically, right, they have been screened, they don't have any of these mutations, they could have overload of iron. And I argue it's mostly because, it's a lack of zinc, it's a lack of molybdenum, and those are going to be the two big ones. But we'll look into other things as well, right? So adrenals, right, some people may have hormone dysfunctions, right? It could, be displaced into the adrenals, causing issues. Thyroid, again, right, this affects your metabolism. People can have joint accumulation of the iron where you get this pain and arthritis kind of feeling. For some, it could be fatigue. And I think the worst one, right, is immune system, right? So you have something with bacteria. They go into your body, they invade, right? And they're looking for fuel. Everything needs fuel to live and thrive, right? So these little guys are looking for iron. They feed off of your iron, they get the energy, they get the power, and, they ravage your body. So that's one of the big problems with having too much iron. So as a nutritionist, I care about looking at things through the lens of a deficiency, right? How by not having something, you're having issues down the road. And then there's something called being holistic nutritionist, but I kind of like the kind of the Dr. Shiva approach, where it's basically systems-based approach, right? Systems-based engineering, where you look at everything in the body, all the parts, and you see how everything plays with each other, right? So you can think of it like a puzzle. You have maybe the top left piece, you got the middle piece, you got the right piece, put them together, then you could have more input to put, so you could add more of the pieces, complete it, and have a full picture to fix things. So I'm trying to see how the body is trying to regulate iron overload. The reality is, with hemochromatosis, I think we could reverse engineer it. Because although, unfortunately they're screwed, right, genetically, right, it's not the end of the world for them. Because they could go get a phlebotomy, right, you go donate blood, get the blood drawn out, and it, removes iron from the body, which is beautiful, it's wonderful, it's one of the easiest ways to deal with it. But I like to look at the average person and think, well, what is their problem? What is their issue? There's something missing. Because, I mean, there are some people, right? They eat foods high in iron, and they're fine, right? They have balanced iron. I guess some people, they eat iron, and they have a ton of iron, right? And they're not much more different from other people, right? Do we blame the iron cast, was it the cast iron pan, right? Do we blame that? For some people, maybe, right? Uh, what do we blame, right? Are they eating the wrong foods? To some extent, that could be it, right? But I don't think that's going to be the number one issue. But we'll talk about later, and we're going to go through hemochromatosis, if you're interested, right? Because some people who watch this, right, may have this issue. But if you don't really care about hemochromatosis, you can skip later to this video, where I'm talking about how to resolve the issue of iron overload in people that do not have hemochromatosis. Alright, so let's get started. So again, right, hemochromatosis is dysfunction of iron metabolism, and it's the result of genetic mutations, some people are unlucky. This is more of a European kind of thing. I believe it's more like stemming from like the Swedes and in Norway, that area. But point being, right, is Europeans are more likely to have this mutation. So these are the HFE, TFR2, HAMP, SLC, and HJV, right? So they each respectively affect different parts of iron metabolism. So you have normal HFE function, right? And the way this works, right, is you have something called transferrin receptor 1. So this guy is a little gauge, right? Kind of like radiation makes a kind of noise when there's too much, uranium nearby. So when this happens, right, it signals to the liver, hey man, there's too much iron and you gotta do something about this. So it tells the liver, hey, produce this thing called hepcidin. When you have more hepcidin, it tells the body, okay, we're not gonna absorb this iron, right? We're not gonna deal with this iron, it's gonna go through the gut and you're gonna poop it out, right? That's simple, right? Into the enterocytes. So what happens if you have the genetic mutation, right, with the C2A2Y? HFE is able to bind to transferrin receptor 1, and what happens is you have low hepcidin. So when your hepcidin's low, right, your liver is going to have this open portal, and you're going to be absorbing all this extra iron, right, that you shouldn't have in the first place. And that's when people have the problem, right, with having too much iron, right? This one is specifically going to be called type 1 hereditary hemochromatosis, because again, it's genetic, right? And here you can see the risk based on your genetic blueprint, and see, hopefully you don't have any of this, right? But if you do have this, then you're going to have liver damage, joint pain, cardiac failure, diabetes, hypothyroidism, and one of them is bronze skin, which is interesting, so I don't know why that happens, but that is something that happens. And yeah, that's kind of the whole point, right? How too much iron can cause issues in the body. So here we have normal TFR2 function. This is when transferrin-bound iron in the liver determines the overall status of iron, right? So if you have too much iron, right, TFR2 will tell HFE and HFA to activate and increase hepcidin production, right? So when you have more hepcidin, because there's too much iron, you then reduce the iron being absorbed into the intestines, so you could get rid of it, right, and absorb it. So again, right, if you're, have the mutation, you're ungifted in this regard, then TFR2 is going to drop the ball, right? And what this means is your liver isn't going to produce enough hepcidin to stop the continuous absorption of iron. This is considered a type 3 hereditary hemochromatosis, right? So it's going to be damage to the liver, sort of cirrhosis. And this happens because the body doesn't know what to do with all this extra iron, right? So it stores it in different body parts for safety. But when you have too much happening over time, right, because your body doesn't want to die right now, it would rather store things for protection later on, so if your body could deal with it, right, it would then remove it and get it out. Then you have hemochromatosis mutation 3. This is going to be hepcidin antimicrobial peptide, or HAMP. So this is what encodes the hepcidin protein to work. And basically this is the body's blueprint to make hepcidin, right? So if you have the mutation, right, for HAMP, you're kind of fucked. Because you can't make this thing, right? Or hopefully you have a partial mutation and you can make some hepcidin to kind of help do that work. So without hepcidin, right, you have something called ferroportin This is what allows iron to enter the bloodstream and to be absorbed. And without hepcidin, it's like breaking open, a water pipe, and you just get this flood, and you can't stop it. You see here, got the liver, produces hepcidin, here in the duodenum, and the spleen, and basically, the whole goal of having more hepcidin is to reduce the absorption of iron. In cases where you're probably going to be anemic, right, you would probably have very low hepcidin, so you could absorb a lot more iron, right, in a normal functioning person. Then you have hemochromatosis mutation 4, right? It's going to be SLC40A1 ferroportin 1. So when it's normal, right, it plays the role as a transporter of iron from the intestinal cells, aka enterocytes, macrophages from the immune system, and your liver cells. So ferroportin is regulated by hepcidin, and this binds to ferroportin for degradation when iron is high, right? So you can finally get rid of it. So when you don't have, this ferroportin, right, you got this deficiency, you get this mutation. What happens is it accumulates iron inside cells, and basically it's kind of stuck in there, right? And it's kind of difficult to get it out of there. So you have a second mutation, right, in which hepcidin-resistant ferroportin can lead to uncontrolled iron transportation in high serum iron, right? So it's just being stored in the body. This is called type 4 hemochromatosis ferroportin disease. And the reality is, it's another form of hemochromatosis. We have too much iron in the body. And we're going down to the fifth one. This is going to be hemochromatosis mutation 5, HJV hemojuvelin. I would assume that's how you say it, right? Or juvelin. So what happens is you have something called bone morphogenic protein and SMAD transcription. I couldn't find the thing for SMAD, right? But point being is there's a pathway of signaling, right, that occurs to have hepcidin be created in response to high iron. This works with HFE, TFR2, for hep expression of hepcidin. If you have the mutation, right, what happens is you can lead to a deficiency in the making of hepcidin somewhere in the signaling. Somewhere in the signaling, they don't know where exactly, but a ball's dropped, a signal isn't triggered, and, you're not making the hepcidin you're supposed to be making. So because of this, right, this could be what the cause of something called juvenile hemochromatosis, in which iron-induced heart failure becomes severe. And I think in some cases, some children die pretty early on due to this mutation. But essentially, this is what hemochromatosis would look like in a person that, didn't get any, let's say, let's say you have this disease, right? You just lived with it and you never went to a doctor. You would kind of look like this, right? You'd have fatigue, you'd have this kind of weirdish bronze-looking skin, like an odd kind of tan. You could have liver cancer. You could also have diabetes, heart failure, and also hypogonadism, right? Which means you're gonna have a problem with as a man, right? With your testosterone, you're gonna have a problem with, your reproductive system, and that's gonna be another issue, right? In the case if you never went to a doctor, that's what it could look like in a severe person with hemochromatosis. Okay, so now come back, right? Let's say, you're like, hey, well, I don't give a shit, man, because I don't have hemochromatosis. What I'm trying to do, right, is I'm trying to reverse engineer a disease that a function in the body due to mutation, and what we can do and learn so it can become fixed or normalized in a normal person that doesn't have any of these genetic defects, right? So what do we learn? We learn hepcidin is really, really important. Without hepcidin, your body's going to absorb as much iron as possible without reducing or blocking it. So a person with hemochromatosis, right, without it, can still be in a similar boat, right, where you have these issues with iron overload. Now we know transferrin is important, right, because it transports iron to be mobilized. Without transferrin, iron is going to be stuck in your body tissue. So the nutrition part, what's required, what do you need for hepcidin and transferrin? What do we do here? Okay, so the big thing I harp on, I stress on, right, and this is because I learn about molybdenum from detoxing, right? It's really important for xanthine oxidase, sulfide oxidase. It's going to help you a lot with the sulfation pathway and liver phase 2 conjugation. But also, it's really important as a cofactor to help you make hepcidin in the liver. And when you have a deficiency of molybdenum, right, this could be a possible reason as to why a person with iron overload is overloading in the first place, because you don't have enough hepcidin being produced to stop the absorption of excess iron. So right here, transfer in copper, very important zinc. So assuming you do have hepcidin, right, let's say you do have sufficient amounts of molybdenum, right, and you can make hepcidin, and you don't have hemochromatosis, so there should not be a problem. But, iron is stored in intestinal cells, right? Enterocytes as hepcidin binds to ferroportin in there. And every 3 to 5 days, the enterocytes, right, which are going to be the cells, right, in your intestines, they shed. And when they shed, you then, lose it, you poop it out. But there's a problem with storage, actually, too, right? Because we do need, copper. Without copper, right, there is no activation of ceruloplasmin, right? So why is this important? This is important because without both, right, the accumulation of iron is stuck in various parts of the body. And when it's stuck in the form of ferrous iron, right, which is the oxidative form, causing inflammation, causing all these problems that you see in this guy, right, causing the fatigue, causing cirrhosis, liver cancer, diabetes, affecting the joints, affecting the heart, affecting, his thyroid and his hormones. And that's the thing, right? You want to make sure if you do have iron, it's stored as a ferritin, right? Because that's the safe form of iron. But if it's stored, in your body tissue, and it's in the form of this ferrous iron, then that's going to cause issues. What happens is you need the copper, right, to help oxidize the Fe2 form into the ferric form Fe3, right? That way it's bound to transferrin, so it can safely move into the bloodstream for transportation where it needs to be, or to be excreted out of the body, right? You have too much, you get it out, right? So here you have the conversion, right? That needs to happen. When it's Fe2 and it's, let's say it's in your pancreas or it's in your heart, you need to have it move out of your body, right? So ceruloplasmin, right, by having a bit of copper, right, just a little bit, what happens is it helps your body move this Fe2 and convert it into Fe3. And once it's in Fe3 form, right, you can finally transport it out of your body or into tissues that need it. And that is what could be missing in some people, right? Although I doubt it, honestly. I don't think most people have a copper deficiency. That's kind of rare, especially because of people having these water pipes that are made of copper, right? Not everybody has the new plastic stuff, right? If you have an older home. And zinc, what about zinc, right? Zinc is really important. I'm a big zinc guy, if you know me, right? Especially with my work on detox and the immune system. But what about infection, right? So infection triggers an increase in hepcidin to store iron inside of the macrophages, the liver cells, and the enterocytes, and the ferritin storage form. So it does this to prevent pathogens, right? So bacteria, right, from entering your body, stealing your iron, doing it to growth and to replicate, and to become a menace to you. Ferroportin is blocked being bound to hepcidin, and the macrophages help prevent iron from leaving by blocking transferrin. This is going to be interleukin 6 and iron sequestration. So this is a reason as to why people with a zinc deficiency are more likely to get sick, because they lack this pragmatic defensive immune system response rate to not give fuel to the fire. You also have lactoferrin and haptoglobin, and they do play a role in binding free iron circulating in the blood to prevent its access to pathogens. Again, right, you want to starve the pathogens in your body and have your immune system kill it, so, if you can't feed the bacteria, they get weaker, and they can't multiply, your immune system comes in, right, and you kill it. But if you're out of zinc, right, that's going to be problematic. So hepcidin may remain high with a chronic infection as iron is trapped. And this is problematic, right? This is where you can have people with a ton of iron look like they have anemia. So you need to have, zinc. If you don't have zinc, right, let's say you have anemia, you've been diagnosed with anemia, right? And let's say, just for all intents and purposes, you're a vegan, vegetarian, or you don't eat any meat at all, right? So you're not getting any red meat from bison, from lamb, from beef, right? Which is really rich in zinc. Let's say you don't even take a zinc supplement, right? Let's just say, worst case scenario, right? You go to, the doctor, you get some blood testing, and you're severely low in zinc, right? But it also appears you might also have, an issue with iron, right? And let's say you're a vegan, vegetarian, and you know you're gonna have this issue with iron, so you take iron, right, to deal with it. You take an iron bisglycinate, and you're knowledgeable, but you kind of neglected and forgot the fact that zinc is just as important. What happens is if you take a zinc, and then brings online, right, the storage, right, the Swiss bank account of your iron reserves can finally be used by your body for what it needs to do, right? And then you can find out, okay, so it's not really an anemia. The iron was always there. It's just it didn't have the zinc key to open up the vault, right? This is why the zinc is important. That's why copper is important. That's why iron is important, right? And in some cases, right, if you're just a straight up, vegan vegetarian, no supplements, you'd probably be low in zinc and iron, but good in copper. So again, right, you have this iron transporters, get the bacteria, you get the transferrin, you get the hepcidin doing its job. Because again, right, you could think of it like a war, right? You got to go into the underneath, right, underground. You get a bomb shelter, you hide in there, you lock into supplies there. Soldiers come, they kill the invaders, and then they gotta let you out, right? But they don't let you out, right? Then you have the issue where you're stuck in there and you can't do anything. So make sure you have zinc, right? Zinc is going to be the troops that come in, they open that vault where you guys are in, and let you out. And you could, go on about your day, do what you gotta do. So, about after an infection, what could happen, right? Is you could be zinc deficient, and like as I talk about this lock, zinc inhibits interleukin 1 and 6, and tumor necrosis factor alpha, to help bring down hepcidin so the ferroportin function is finally restored, allowing the iron, right, ferritin to leave the cells, enterocytes and the macrophages. That way regular iron metabolism can function and resume. And this is because of the zinc-dependent metallothionein. It's broken down after infection to then release the stored iron. So if you ever get like really, really sick and you didn't take any zinc, right? Let's say you're a vitamin C person, a vitamin D person. That's all fine and dandy, but again, right, you really do need zinc for not just the immune system, but also for detoxing and for a lot of things. Zinc does so many things, right? It should basically be like hormone at this point. The point being, if you ever get sick, right, and I'm going to bring the example of the 2019 flu, if you know what I'm talking about, what happened is everybody got affected, some people got severely sick, some people didn't. And what happened is the people that took zinc did well, they got better. And they also weren't the ones that became the long haulers, right, as they're called. And they bounced back pretty quickly. The people that never took the zinc, right, they kind of became the long haulers. They kind of, got a few injections in them, right? So they had that immune response happening multiple times, but they never really got back the zinc they needed for their body to proliferate its immune system to do its job. And the iron was stuck in the ferritin storage mode, right? Without being used and transported to what it needs, and that's why some people, in some cases, had anemia. So again, without zinc, your body's locked out from its own bank supply of iron. And this is when people get the anemia, the pallor, and despite this iron deficiency, in this case, it was mainly a lack of zinc. So again, right, although antagonistic, zinc, copper, they're essential for iron metabolism, and they works with each other. And of course, with molybdenum. So here, right, you have a zinc deficiency, right? It can coexist with iron deficiency, which is basically, if you eat enough, beef, bison, lamb, you're gonna get iron, you're gonna get zinc. And if you don't have it right, you have this impaired erythropoiesis. In anemia, body zinc is redistributed, right? It does its best to release zinc. That way, zinc-induced erythropoiesis, right? You get the new red blood cells you need. Because it's a matter of not having those beautiful red blood cells around your body, being oxygenated, doing its job, bringing nutrients to where it needs to go, right? And zinc excess anemia, it could be due to a copper deficiency, because again, they're antagonistic, right? Too much zinc kicks out copper, too much copper kicks out zinc. Basically, you want a 10-to-1 ratio. Some people even argue a 15 to 20 to 1 ratio. So I think I do what's best for you. I'm a zinc guy, but again, if you've got copper water pipes, right, or you have too much, it could be problematic. But if you want to know, right, then you got to get a hair, hair tissue mineral analysis so you could look at the lab work to see, okay, maybe you have too much zinc, maybe you have, actually, maybe you don't have any copper at all, right? It just depends, right? You got to do some testing to figure this part out. Whereas a blood test can do a good job, right? You can't find subclinical, deficiencies like that way, unless they're like severely bad. So what about a different tool, right? What if you can have something else that'll help you, right? So we're looking into something called epigallocatechin gallate, right? And this is a really popular renowned polyphenol that they used in the green tea extract. So what happens, it helps you bind, it helps you mobilize and reduce the absorption of iron from the body, right? There's something called a catechol group, right? This is the negative OH, and it forms a bond with ferrous and ferric iron. And interestingly enough, right, it can block the valent metal transport 1 in the intestine, so you're also at the same time reducing iron absorption. EGCG can also bind to ferritin. EGCG catechol group counteracts the Fenton reaction. So what happens is this is the iron, right, in your body, causes oxidation, and it binds to it. So it basically negates this inflammation that you get from this iron. It also suppresses interleukin 6, which can downregulate hepcidin, allowing ferroportin to export iron out of cells for excretion. Now, some people have had good experiences with EGCG, and others haven't. I think it's a matter of people, taking care of their body, right? If you're eating a crappy diet and you're trying to overcome iron overload, you can't cheat God, you can't cheat biology, you gotta eat a healthy diet. You gotta stop eating garbage, stop with the seed oil, stop doing, high sugar crap, and eat a real diet, right? So the reality is, the people that tend to do better, they have a better diet, right? They work out, they get sun, they drink clean water, and they care about themselves, so they're gonna have a better outcome. Whereas if you're a person, trying to have your cake and eat it too, you're not gonna do so great. Because again, right, if you eat well, you get the nutrients you need, and everything runs smoothly. If you're still eating fast food and junk food, right, you go to, I don't know, Chick-fil-A every day and Burger King and a McDonald's, and you don't have a really home-cooked meal, then again, right, you're gonna suffer because you're eating empty calories. Sure, you're getting, your carbs or your fats or whatever, right? But it's not the healthy kind you would want with the nutrition you want to help make your body go forward. So you can rebuild your body with nutrients and not that lack of where you feel like shit. It's just the reality, right? I gotta lay it on people, right? If you want to get healthier, you gotta stop eating crap. There's no way around it, Once you learn that reality and you make the changes and you see it and you feel good, you'll be happy. But yeah, you can't cheat your body by taking supplements or taking certain things and acting like you're going to get healthier, right? Once you stop putting garbage in, you feel like less garbage, right? So testing for hemochromatosis, right? I recommend going to your doctor, right? If you have insurance, it's the cheapest thing to do. And they'll help you with a genetic testing to get a full panel so you can see if you have the homozygous and heterozygous mutations, following ones here. And if you're negative for HFE mutations, right, then of course you want to do the next generation sequencing full hemochromatosis panel, right, to see which one of these you have, right? If you have the HAP one, you would probably already know because you would be suffering as a child. Same one with HJV, you would kind of already know that. So if you, somehow escape the HFE mutation, you probably want to see if you might have the type 3, type 4, which would be the FR2, transferrin receptor 2 mutation, or the SLC40A1 ferroportin mutation. So what about blood testing, right? And we're looking for people that are, in this context, right, that they don't have iron overload. So for men, if you're over 300, that's terrible. Women over 200, not good. If you have more testing with iron, if your transferrin saturation is over 45, that's pretty high. Serum iron and total iron binding capacity, your hepcidin, right? Want to measure that. Also, your ceruloplasmin and your copper. And again, talk to your doctor to run these testing. I could give tests, but you got to pay for it. Whereas if you go to your doctor, insurance can help you pay for that, and that makes everything easier. So again, work with your doctor and get them involved and educate them so they could be, well-rounded and, smart to help other people, right? Because you're here because, one, you like me, you like my voice, like listen to me. Two, you're here because you're looking for a solution to fix your life and to do better. Three, fill in the blank, I don't know. But can nutrients fix or improve hemochromatosis? Well, in this context, it depends, and we'll look at all of them. But the reality is, for some it could help, for some it doesn't really, you know, budget right. So if you have the HFE mutation, right, molybdenum is a cofactor, right? A little bit can help you, right? But again, right, there's still a failure where there's too much iron, right? Zinc can also help. Copper can also help. TFR2, same thing. It could help a little bit, but again, there's still a failure to detect iron levels being high. So even with sufficient amounts of molybdenum, right, it's still dropping the ball to say, hey, let's get more hepcidin, right, to take care of this excess iron. Zinc and copper, they're always going to help. So for hemp, right, it's a cofactor, right? And it could help you if you have a partial deficiency. But if you don't have a partial deficiency, right, and you have a full deficiency of hemp, then you're kind of fucked. Molybdenum does nothing, right? So in this kind of person, right, you're kind of forced to get, your blood drawn every few months, 3 to 4, depending on your doctor. Always, when you go donate, right, you kind of want to check your blood work to see if you're not high enough or you're not low enough, right? That way you're balanced. Okay, so I think what I did here, right, is I thought, right, there could be some relationship, right, with EGCG if you have hemp, because again, right, it neutralizes the oxidative Fenton reaction, so you reduce inflammation, and essentially it steps in the absence of hepcidin, right? So whereas you can't turn off the faucet, EGCG can come in as a really big bucket to scoop it out of your body. Then you have SLC40A1, and this is going to be the buildup of iron inside your body. So molybdenum is going to have no impact because ferroportin's broken. Zinc and copper can help. Again, right, EGCG in this case scenario could help you. But again, right, you want to have your blood drawn. That would be the most effective way to do it. What about the ferroportin disease version of SLC40A1? So this gain-of-function mutation rate can cause ferroportin to be resistant to hepcidin, which means you're going to have high serum iron and iron export that is not controlled. You're going to have the overload. Again, ferroportin is broken, so molybdenum isn't going to work. Zinc and copper can help you. EGCG, that's going to help you a lot. HJV, molybdenum can help if it's a partial mutation. If it's a complete mutation, you're kind of screwed. Zinc works, it helps you. Copper helps, works, helps you. But again, right, we're still going to have to use EGCG as a tool to help you, right? So what do I think, right? What is the final verdict I have? So although hemp and ferroportin disease could look like a overload death sentence, the reality is, don't give up, right? No one should ever give up. As time passes on and we learn new things and we could make these relationships look more visible and connect them with each other, there's always excitement, right? To do better, right? To be more interested in solving issues, right? So EGCG may be the safest way to remove iron from the body besides a phlebotomy. And this is because the catechol group neutralizes the Fenton reaction, which is impressive, right? Because this is what prevents the oxidative stress, the inflammation. EGCG actually doesn't need copper at all, or ceruloplasmin to mobilize out iron, because it's an independent chelator. So it's best to pair this with copper for proper complementary ceruloplasmin iron mobilization, right? So just for the sake of having, the transportation happen with ceruloplasmin, it could help you. Especially for your body to make use of it, as opposed to it just being in the storage form. So the EGCG iron complex, right, is important, right? And this is where I'm going with this. You need to have your vitamins and your minerals, and to be clean and to do well, right? So your body can actually go, hey, it's time to be healthy, so we could, detox this out of your body. So once the EGCG, right, it binds to the iron, it goes to the liver for phase 1 biotransformation, right? So this is where cytochrome P450 and catechol O-methyltransferase becomes water soluble, It's then conjugated through glucuronidation, right? UGT with glucuronic acid, and in some cases it could go through sulfotransferase through sulfation to extract sulfate groups to increase water solubility to then poop or pee it out. So what happens is from the liver into the bile ducts through multi-drug resistance associated protein 2, the bile contains, the complex that's conjugated, and then you poop it out. The end, right? So again, right, so knowledgeable on this topic, you don't want to have enterohepatic recirculation, so it also helps to have some fiber in your diet, and to have a little bit of activated black charcoal powder, so it helps you absorb all that bile to poop it out instead of recycling it into your body, right? Because it did all that work to recycle something that needs to be thrown out, and it's like, all right, well, you gotta do it over again. That's not cool, right? Because you don't want to work twice as hard for something. So HFE, TFR2, and HJV can be helped with an increase of minerals like molybdenum, zinc, and copper to an extent depending on the severity of the mutations. We can talk about a low dose that is safe and helpful for people suffering from iron overload. However, when it comes to taking certain big doses of certain nutrients for hemochromatosis, find a doctor that can help you personalize the dosage and responsive blood work, right? So I'm not going to work with people that have that hemochromatosis problem. You got to work with your doctor. If you're a regular person, you don't have hemochromatosis, I'll work with you. Because again, right, there is no genetic factor, that's going to hold me back. If you're just a normal person, right, you get testing and you don't have any of these hemochromatosis mutations, then it'd be easier to work with you, right? Just because it'll be simpler without that in the equation. So again, right, he's a nutrition to support our metabolism for non-genetic hemochromatosis. Molybdenum, right, you want to get some. People are incredibly deficient in this thing. It's not much in the food anymore. You could get molybdenum from eating plenty of beans, but again, not everyone is a bean eater, right? So again, right, increases hepcidin to bind to ferroportin to reduce the absorption of iron, right? So if it's severe, you can take 250. If you just want maintenance, which ideally you want to just stick with maintenance, over time, eventually you'll get rid of it, right? And to have a balance. That's the whole point of molybdenum, right? So about 100 mcgs would help you with that. Zinc, about 11 to 30 milligrams. It's going to help you unlike iron sequestration after an infection for metallothionein. It's going to help you regulate hepcidin and support liver detox. So if you want to do the EGCG to do the complex, it'll help you detox that out. Again, copper, you don't want that much. It can activate ceruloplasmin to convert, your ferrous to ferric iron for transportation. Something I argue is people that have copper water pipes, you might already have enough copper in your body, or maybe too much. It depends, right? Magnesium, again, it helps you to stabilize the release of iron. It helps you. Most people are very deficient in magnesium because the body needs magnesium for almost everything in the body, which is kind of crazy and annoying. So make sure you get sufficient magnesium. Selenium, very important. It helps you as an antioxidant and helps support liver detox. And I guess in the case of the people that have, issues with your thyroid, it can also be affecting your selenium. EGCG, 100 milligrams to 500 milligrams. Again, depends on you. If you get blood testing, see how that interacts with you over a period of time. So again, I'm a big fan of methylfolate and calcium folinate because one of the important things about folate is it helps you repair DNA. So if you have long-term oxidative stress, long-term damage from that, it could help you fix your cells and fix your DNA in that regard. But important to mention, right? Folate cannot repair damaged DNA. That's from an inherited gene mutation. That's just your blueprint. That's the way it's going to be. But if it's later term damage and you're genetically normal, then folate's going to help with that. So as always, consult with your doctor for hemochromatosis and nutrition so they can understand your blood work. And, when you have blood work, you could do things better. So me being me, right, as a researcher on Accutane, vitamin metabolism, and hypervitaminosis A, toxicity, if you want to call it that, there's a connection, right? And the connection is people with iron overload have an issue with iron metabolism. So not only that, but they can have this sort of iron overload issue. And why would that happen? So what happens is when you have like a crazy amount of vitamin A, it can play a role in suppressing hepcidin, which means when you have low hepcidin, your body is going to absorb more iron without reducing the accumulation. And vitamin A achieves this effect by suppressing interleukin 6, which means indirectly, right, it's going to suppress hepcidin. And in great amounts with molybdenum deficiency, it'll impair hepcidin, increasing iron overload. Which means hepcidin cannot bind to ferroportin to reduce the absorption of iron. And if you're a person that takes Accutane, right, vitamin A supplementation, cod liver oil, desiccated liver pills, you do a bunch of retinol cream to look beautiful, or you eat plenty of liver, this could be an issue as to why you may have an issue with this, right? I think it was like 33, 34, I believe a Nobel Prize was given to someone for recommending eating beef liver to solve anemia. And that makes a lot of sense, because it's really nutrient dense, right? But it could be problematic if you eat too much of it, right? This is why I don't tell people to eat liver. So you have vitamin A, right? You got iron, you got copper, and you got this trinity to massively increase the amount of iron in your body. So if you already have hemochromatosis or you have iron overload, I would stay away from these vitamin A rich foods because you don't want to make the problem even worse. And on the other hand, right, although I haven't seen this or heard of it, right, but maybe too much molybdenum could be bad for you and give you anemia. I don't know, I don't think so, but that's just food for thought. So here you have low hepcidin, right? When it's low, you get the ferritin here. Then you have the high hepcidin, iron uptake here, high ferritin. Because the reality is, the body has balance. If you get too much of this iron, then you want hepcidin to go up to prevent it. If you don't have enough iron, right, you want to have less hepcidin. So I don't think there would ever be an issue with iron absorption. Especially the same going with a deficiency. But, it all hankers on the fact that what we learned from hemochromatosis is those kind of people have a genetic mutation in which the signals are dropping the ball and the regulation is broken. But as a normal person, again, right? Zinc, molybdenum, copper, magnesium, selenium, a real bioavailable folate, and have that folic acid crap. That shit sucks. Removing fast food, removing processed food so your liver can work well and be happy. Good hydration with electrolytes, sunlight, exercise, being healthy, it's really important. And one thing that I find really odd, right, is people talk about how humans need to bleed. You gotta bleed. And there's this theory, right? Again, it's a shitty theory. Somehow our ancestors bled so much, right? And that's how we got rid of iron overload. I don't believe in that. I think there's a mechanism. We know it's hepcidin. Molybdenum, as it is, there's that much present in the soil, right? Richest source I've seen is from beans, so we get a lot of beans for that. But again, mind the phytate, so that's a double-edged sword, catch-22 thing kind of going on. So the best thing to do is to supplement molybdenum so people are able to do their best and to actually have the hepcidin work the way it should be working. The whole people had to bleed and, like that was so common back then, so it doesn't make sense. Your body wouldn't be retarded. Your body wouldn't be so dumb, it wouldn't have a mechanism for that. Unless, of course, you had a mutation. Then that would make sense. But for the average human being that doesn't have this mutation for hemochromatosis, I don't believe in that. So considering, again, right, people in a Western diet eat processed food and garbage, and it's, again, right, it's empty calories, so you're not really getting a lot of vitamins and minerals, but as it is, people don't even get enough molybdenum or even know what the fuck that is, right? Some weird little mineral, trace mineral thing, right? But again, right, if you have iron overload, you go get blood work, right? You go donate blood. So here's what you should do, right? In my opinion. Let's say you believe you think you have iron overload. Go draw blood, right? Go donate it. It's going to help people. If you're an O positive, right, then even more, right? Because that's a universal donor, right? So that's going to be a good thing, right? You're giving away blood. People are going to get your blood. And it's iron rich and they're going to need it for people, These are people that are dying. And you can save their life. So if you go and you donate blood and you feel good, you feel better, get the energy going back, then yeah, you could have iron overload. If you go donate blood and you feel absolutely terrible, then you probably didn't have iron overload. That's just a simple way to see, right, if you feel good or bad. So again, right, let's say you do have iron overload, and you draw blood and you feel better, and you want to maintain feeling better, like good energy, to not have this oxidative stress. You know, you need to get these nutrients here. So again, you can take supplements if you want. It's a choice. As always, I recommend people should fix their diet first. Always fix your diet. If you don't fix your diet, then what are you doing? Why are you here? You can get all the information in the world, right? But if you're not making the changes to your diet, which, on my Patreon, I do, and I should put a link to it, right? But if you're not eating better for nutrition, to get the vitamins and minerals you need to detox, to have better skin, better hair, to fix your hormones, to have your testosterone, women, to balance their estrogen. For men, women, have your energy, to work out, and people go to work for 8 hours and you get out and you're tired, right? You want to be the man or woman that gets out at work and have energy to do things they want to do. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to fix America so people can be happier and healthier and to live the life they wish they could live, but can't do so because of health issues and a bad diet. So again, as always, like I said, go donate blood. If you feel good, you got to go through the process. If you feel bad, you don't have iron overload more than likely. So you want to maybe get an HTMA test. But again, right, I want to save people money. So that little donated thing alone can tell you more about it. Or even get a blood test from your doctor, which would help. For testing, right, but I don't like people spending too much money. Alright, so supplements, right? This is a free article. But if you subscribe to my Patreon for $5, right? What happens is you click that link, you go to my other article, you sign up an account with FullScript, and you get a 30% discount off of all supplements, which is pretty cool. Which means, just spending $5 to get a discount is going to save you hundreds of bucks if you're a supplement guy. If not, even just buying your one supplement is going to save you more than enough money. So you can get the zinc here, get the molybdenum here, magnesium here, selenium here, folate. If you have the MTHFR mutation, the motherfucker gene they call it, right? Then you can take this folate, which is going to help you better absorb it. EGCG, again, this is from, the green tea extract, the green tea. So if you have an issue with the caffeine, you can take this caffeine-free version. If you want the caffeine one for whatever reason, right? Maybe you want a little boost at some point, then take it earlier in the day and have a little boost, right? But again, depends on you and how you would feel. And as I say, right, if you take supplements and you don't feel good, stop taking it. I usually tell people to start slowly and to do one at a time, because you could be reacting to something and not know what it is. If you're taking 520 things, right, it's going to be kind of hard to see which one's doing the damage or causing your issues, the problems. So again, thank you. If you have a problem with iron, and I suggest a lot of people look into this, right, donate blood. Simplest way to see if you have iron overload or not. If you feel better right away, you know you probably have a molybdenum deficiency, and or probably with zinc. And it's easy to maintain your iron levels. It's easy to get to the point. It's just a matter of the knowledge, right? That's all it's about. When you have hemochromatosis, you know this better than anyone. Just go get your blood drawn. It's an easy way to do it because you're genetically fucked, right? So you kind of have to get your blood drawn. But again, right, I'm here to help people learn, improve their health, share with their friends, share with their family, because you can get this information from other people, and they do a good job. But you're here because you like me, and I have a unique take on things, and I think about things differently, and that's why people really like me. So share with your friends, share with your family if this is an issue, and take back your health, because a lot of people these days don't really care, and I'm kind of thinking people should care more than ever, because we live in a world full of toxins, and you gotta actively mitigate your exposure to, plastics. Plastics are making you, I don't know, kind of gay. Low T. Women, a lot more estrogenic. A lot more fatter. We want to get healthier. We don't want to be sad. We don't want depression. We want anxiety. You gotta eat well to feel well, right? If you want to eat garbage, you feel like garbage, then that's on you, right? But I mean, you wish for what you want, and if you put in the work, you'll see the benefits and you'll see the results. And if not, then hey, like God bless you, right? Hope you do best. So again, right? If you're new and you don't even know what my Patreon is, and you want to understand what we do here, I make a lot of guides. Because again, right, it's $5 a month. It's cheap. It's affordable. I believe people are smart enough to solve their own issues. So here I give you the information and the knowledge. My type 2 diabetes course is a fun one people like. For men to increase testosterone and makes them more aware of the environment around them and what to not do and what to do to increase T. Folate is important, and again, Tylenol can deplete it, so that is an issue, right? Just to be mindful. If you have a genetic predisposition for cancer, you're not screwed. Click this article, and you can learn a lot about cancer and what to do about it, as opposed to doing nothing about it and just saying, "Hey, fuck it, I'm done." Salt's important. I think we need about an average of 3 grams per day. You know, it's a sweet spot. And if you feel low energy, increase your salt intake, you might feel better. Stop acid reflux and stomach pain, fix your digestion. That's a good one for some people, right? Especially leaky gut. If you're always reacting to food, this is a food and mood journal I have here you can download. If you like to cheat on your diet and understand why you're cheating, you could have a nutritional deficiency and your body's telling you, hey man, I'm craving this food, I want you to eat it because I need it, and you're lacking, a certain, nutrient, and that's why your body does that. Are the new Doritos good? No, they suck. Uh, if you want something decent, try Siete. That's a good brand. Glycine's really good for a lot of things. You might want to click it, because a lot of people, they don't eat, like, meat that's tough, the ligaments, the stuff that gets stuck in your teeth. Some people can just cheese it and do a collagen. Acne, this is an important one for people to be faced with the reality that you can't cheat your diet. What you eat is how you look on the outside and how you detox it. Planning and creating healthy habits is going to help people plan their goals, and so they can achieve their goals and to make the habits to get to that point. Why people get sick from high dose B vitamins and B6 toxicity. So again, right, I'm currently looking into B vitamins that are low dose, because the majority of B vitamins are high dose, and because they're high dose, what happens is people get toxicity in which their body is skewed. You end up using a lot of minerals, and we use a lot of minerals, right? Like the zinc we talked about, like the magnesium we talked about, like the calcium we talked about. Actually, we didn't talk about calcium, but I'm doing a lot of research into calcium about certain things about besides bone. But my point being, right, is you have a nutrient-induced deficiency, right, of your minerals because you took high-dose B vitamins. I'm looking at B vitamins that are very low dose, so you could take it and feel good, right? Because again, right, people have this myth, right, that you could take a ton of B vitamins and you'll just piss it out. That's true for some of them, but it's not true for all of them. And that's why people that get B6 toxicity are suffering, because you can't just piss out B6. You got to process it in your body. And I'm already talking too much. I don't talk a lot. So again, if you're not happy and you don't know thyself like the Templars, that's a good one. Bread and beans are stealing nutrients from the food you eat. Just separate it, right, from your meats. That way you keep your nutrients, right? Or you click the article to learn everything about it. Again, high dose calcium and vitamin D3 can clog your heart, hurt your joints, and weaken your bones. And how to fix it? Again, vitamin D3 helps you absorb more calcium, but it doesn't mean it's going to put it in the right places. Just to be mindful. And again, if you want to be my client, you like me, you're like, hey, this guy's smart, I kind of like him, or you're a chick, you're like, damn, this guy's pretty amazing, I kind of feel something about him. You can hire me for a retainer, right? For as low as $297 a month. I think it's very cheap. I think it's affordable. A lot of people tend to do the whole per appointment cost. I don't want to do that anymore. I don't like it, because then people miss an appointment and then they don't want to pay money or something happens, right? But as long as you pay the $297, you can see how many times you want a month. And I think that's pretty cool, right? Because it's affordable, and once you see me the first time, the consequences of future appointments ends up being like a good 5-10 minutes. So I don't feel like I don't feel cool, charging people for a lot of money for like 5 minutes, right? It's like when you talk to a doctor, right, and they charge you for 5 minutes, and it's like, oh, just do the copay, and it's always the same amount, right? It's like 110 was an hour, 110 was 5 minutes. Why am I being charged the same, right? But everybody wants to brag about their professionalism and how they're so smart and big brain and how they deserve all this money in the world, right? I reverse type 2 diabetes. I don't think I need a private island and a jet, right? I'm just, doing my thing, right? God's work. So again, right, whatever problems you have, right, I help people with type 2 diabetes to reverse it, chronic fatigue, help people reverse it to have more energy, stress and sleep. I help people sleep like babies again. I had a client told me he hadn't slept like that in 20 years. And that was pretty awesome, right? Because like they just get that revelation, like, wow, things can be better, things will be better, which is pretty neat, right? Toxic heavy metal detox nutrition. I do it in a way where you're not going to be a chelating kind of guy. You're going to naturally have your body detox it by displacing it with the right minerals. What people don't understand or know, right, is when you have this issue, right, where you have mercury, you got arsenic, right? Like, for example, like arsenic and mercury, right? You need selenium, right? Selenium's going to kick them out. Fuck them, right? Get rid of it. Because again, they're placing your receptors, and they're there until you put the right nutrition to kick it out. That's basically what happens. Hormone balancing is important because again, men, you want your testosterone. Women, you want to look, not fat. You want to have that nice, Venus figure, whatever you call it, and look good. You want to help your hunger hormones too. You want to make sure you got the hormones for your body to act properly. If you took Accutane or you ate too much beef liver, or you take those Saladino supplements that fucked you up, I'm your guy. I can help you detox. The reality is, if I say vitamin is toxic, people get angry. But if I say vitamin A induces vitamin and mineral depletion, and we got to balance your nutrition, then people are happier because it sounds fancier. But that deficiency is what's causing the toxicity, right? But toxicity is a cool buzzword to get people kind of agitated, right? But again, right, I'm not a agitator kind of guy. I am very against the grain in a lot of respects, but I'm not trying to like rage bait people because, you know, I don't like that. Just be cool, be honest, be chill. Just be cool about it, right? Well, why you gotta make people angry? Then you have heart health nutrition, very important. If you're older, right, or you're worried about, your heart's getting clogged, we could put you on the right diet so it won't happen. We can also take care of your calcium metabolism so it won't happen with the CAC. Fertility nutrition. If you're a man and you're shooting blanks and you want to put a real bullet into your wiener, hit me up and I'll help you so you could finally, have your legacy to have children, right? To have a beautiful daughter and an amazing son and carry on your legacy. Because again, right, we're here to fuck, to live long and prosper, right? To be fruitful and to multiply. That's human nature, right? And I mean, there's some really amazing people out there that can't have kids, right? It's like, no, we're screwing up the gene pool with inferior genetics or blah blah blah, right? Point being, right, is there's awesome people out there, and they deserve the chance to proliferate just like any other person, right? To have smart kids, right? Because again, the whole point of what I do, right, is I want to get you healthy. You have your family, you get them healthy, then you get your children, right? How many you want to have, so they can all grow up smarter, stronger, faster, and to just be amazing and be like super intelligent, and they could solve issues we can't solve, and to create a better world for us we couldn't figure out, right? Because I mean, looking at all these Zoomer, right? All these new kids, they're kind of bright, and then they're kind of weird, but like not in a good way. So I'm hoping we could, I don't know, kink out, the genetics and the diet and all that kind of stuff. So a generation two for now, we're having like the most badass kids ever, right? Because yeah, I mean, we need to do better for humanity by doing more for our kids, so they could grow up to be just amazing, right? oncology and cancer nutrition. I have helped people that had cancer. They went back every year and they were perfect. I don't want to call it anything, right? That's all I'm going to say. People with cancer who came to me, they get a checkup every year and nothing got worse. So, yeah, I mean, that's cool, right? Imagine dealing with a destructive life problem and you go back every year and you're like, hey, it hasn't gotten worse. Good job, you know? But they never ask, what are you doing, right? It's like, wouldn't you want to know as a doctor what you're doing? Why did your cancer go away? What the fuck, you know? Like, give me the secrets, give me the knowledge, right? So I can share this with everyone. Again, it's all about diet and nutrition and to, detox exposures and to remove yourself from toxic things like mold and pesticides. Very important. And mental health nutrition. So mental health nutrition has a place near and dear to my heart because a lot of people went to school, went to become like mental health people, and you know, they don't really do much. And they're doing great work, but to make that work budge, right, you gotta give people the right fuel, right? You gotta give them the right proteins so they can make neurotransmitters, right? So they get dopamine and serotonin to be balanced, and to get oxytocin to feel loved, and to get endorphins to feel happy, right? Like, you can't neglect nutrition. I don't give a shit how you cut it or what you do, right? Everything in the world has some kind of food, nutrition related thing you could fix and solve, right? It's easy. It's simple. There's patterns. Look for the patterns and you get it. So again, right, if you want to be my client, right, and you're earnest and you really want to make a change and you care about it, then click the link. You can hire me on Patreon. You're subscribed to the Patreon, but as a $297 a month member, right? That's all it is, right? You get it for a month, see how you like it, see if you like me. If not, you can cancel. So again, right, I make things easy, I make things simple, and I don't beat around the bush. I want to be as affordable as possible. The economy is getting worse. I've seen people go to, and I'm not going to name them because they'll sue me, but the kind of people that charge like 6,000, 8, 10,000, and then they'll charge you another 2,000 for supplements, and another, I think, what, 1,500 for like testing. That's free $10,000 right there, and a month, and then they go for like another what, 3 months of the program, so they're paying another like 10, 18,000. So by the time they're done, they pay 20,000 and they feel not better. But they come to me for, let's say 3 months, right? 297, right? That's what? Less than 600? Let's say what, 591? And they feel better than the fucking guy who charged them $20,000, right, for all that bullshit. So again, right? I charge less because, well, I mean, I can't say this word because it'll get me banned, right? No matter where I say it, because you can't critique those who roll over you. But I'm not gonna screw people over. You know, people need to have better health and to achieve it. And they charge those prices like other people, right? Then no one's gonna get better. And as it is, they're charging high prices and they're not getting people better, right? I mean, they're proud that they're driving a nice fucking car, right? And they're showing off on social media about how they're like, I don't do that. I like to be grounded, like to be with the people, one of the people, right? Because again, we're all in this together as the human family, as we're trying to do better in life and to live a happier life. So again, guys, thank y'all. I love y'all. God bless y'all. I hope you take your molybdenum. I hope you are able to reverse your iron overload. Go donate your blood. If you feel amazing, then you do have iron overload. If you felt kind of bad, right? And let's say you felt bad, and you had the snack, and you feel a bit better, right? Then you didn't have iron overload. Because another issue to be mindful of, right, is if you go donate blood and you're very bad on your salt intake and you don't really get any potassium, right, and you're messing with your electrolytes and you're not really getting your magnesium, then you could feel bad when you do your blood draw for the donation as a form of slight dehydration, right? That's why they usually give you like a salty snack and some water when you're done with your blood, so you can replenish your plasma. Yeah, so again, if you like this video, please like it, share it. I talk way too much. That's why my shorts are never going to be short, because I just kind of keep rambling. I guess that's how I work. But yeah, thank y'all. God bless y'all. Have an amazing day, and goodbye, right?